How do you guys like my vibrato? You know, in my former life, I was a singer. And in my current life, I'm a singer too. How are you guys doing? You know what this is. You know who we be. Are you ready? Like DX used to say, are you ready? Yes, kids, you know where you at. You know you've reached. Greatest show on earth. Greatest show on earth. Episode 9, I believe. Season 2. You guys, we're doing it, Vince. We are doing it big like B.I.G. You guys, let me kick this off properly, and then I'll introduce my counterpart, my co-host with the most, or the least sometimes, because, you know, where I gain, he lacks. I am your Lipton iced tea drinking, sanitizer using, I am the man, I am the master, and I am the ruler of the world. As said by Psycho Sid back in the 90s when he was in the WWE, he was over as hell. I am the jet fly, kiss stealing. Well, not kiss stealing because that's kind of rapey, but back then it was cool to say that. Man with the master plan, limousine riding, as said by Rickolas Flair, because I call him Rickolas Flair. I always say that all the time. I am the jaboni beating, pie eating, as said by The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, the biggest actor on the planet, and he was the biggest wrestler ever. I am like a basketball player. You can see him dunk, because I'm the best in the world, like CM Punk. Man with the master plan. I am your host, LAREN Maxstar Moore.
And I'm the #1 stunner, Vince EUSTACE.
What? I remember that song. That was the jam. And you guys, you've reached episode 9, season 2 of Popcorn
and Booze.
Vince, I see you got your booze.
Yes, sir.
That sounded like I said boobs. Sorry. I see you got a nice
you enunciated properly.
Okay, it felt like boobs coming out.
I guess we'll see it on we'll see on playback.
It's my sexual frustrations, Vince. It's been a pandemic. You can't be around people. I ain't getting any action. I'm dying. You don't keep. You're like, and I can't help you with that, Laren. Sorry. Get us a sex. Is that a thing? Do people get sex dolls anymore?
I don't know, but it sounds like a you problem.
It is. It really is. It really is. I'll survive though. I'll survive. You guys, you know where you've reached. Greatest show on earth, Popcorn and Booze. We talk about pop culture, wrestling, hip hop, movies, the bibbity boop, the beebity bop. Bada bing, bada boom, the realest nigga in the room. Maxstar, that be me. And Vince, you're all
right. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm what we would call real, but I like to think I'm genuine.
Oh, you know what? I'll roll with that. I can roll with that. I give you so much shit. I could at least give you credit for that.
No, it's actually, I read something on it where it was saying, some guy was saying that, like, especially in regards to hip hop, and I'll say this and then we'll move on to actual show without getting into psychoanalysts, that in terms of like hip hop or like street culture, being real doesn't tie in with reality. Reality is like what is imposed on you. Being real is what you impose back. So it's like, okay, since my reality is like a lot different from these like MCs and stuff like that, like I can't really be real in that aspect, but genuine or authentic in other ways.
Wow, that was deep, man.
Well,
that means, so I guess it was safe to say that your favorite Dave Chappelle sketch was not When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong.
I mean, those were great.
You don't go by that ideology.
No, I mean, I just know that I'm not real, but I can see what if I try to be real, I would end up like everyone in that sketch where it would go wrong.
Gotcha. Well, that's a good ideology, man. I'll let you run with that one. That's interesting. I'll tell you what is real though. This show, and our first official segment. So kick it off, Mr. Eustace.
I mean, you really couldn't turn on the TV, go on the internet without hearing about the Meghan Markle interview with Oprah Winfrey. She and her husband, you may have heard of him, called Prince Harry, sat down with Oprah to talk about kind of how they left the royal family and addressed a lot of rumors about where they kind of stand. And one of the big things was Meghan Markle mentioned that she was suicidal due to treatment from not only the royal family, but the British press. And this was while she was pregnant. And she also mentioned that the royal family was basically racist towards her and would be concerned about like how dark this of like the skin color of her baby was going to be, and a bunch of other different things. So it made a bunch of headlines.
Yeah.
People are defending Meghan Markle, being like, like way to like stand up. And of course, there's people like Tucker Carlson and like Candace Owens who are like, oh, she's not a victim, she's being a crybaby, and a bunch of other things. Especially when it comes to the thought that like she was treated poorly because of racism. I'll let you talk on. I know you don't know much about the story, but I want to hear your take on what I've just told you. Just like upon hearing that, like, what's your take? Especially when someone says that someone as powerful as her can't suffer from racism. Yeah. Oh, no one's being racist towards you. You're not a victim because you're very high up.
Well, before I start my point, I want to give a shout out to Bebop and Rocksteady here with the Stankonia Outcast pose, a culture clash. I know it has nothing to do with this story, but I figured if I don't do it now, I'll forget. So shout out to these two in my awesome sweater. Okay, so now that that's out the way, this might sound very morbid and very dark, but that girl is very lucky they have not tried to kill her, in my opinion, because of obviously the whole situation with her obviously being African American, her already being, I dated and was involved with an English woman, meaning she was obviously born in England, for a number of years, and I learned a lot during that time. And she actually taught me a lot. And usually, and it was the same thing with Princess Diana. Usually, people that are brought into the royal family that aren't of royalty or cut from that cloth, or are not upper class or high class, as they call it, or posh, as they call it in England, they're considered as commoners. And despite Meghan being very successful in the entertainment industry, from what I understand, I know she wasn't a big movie star, but she was definitely doing things in the industry.
Yeah, she was on a hit TV show.
Yeah, she was on a TV show. Apparently, she did very well in school, or I don't know if she did she have any majors or majored in anything, any accolades school wise?
I'm not sure. She's very smart. I know that when she was very young, she like kind of got somewhat famous because she wrote to a company, like a cleaning company, that was using sort of like sexist tropes in their commercial. And she wrote to them to be like, hey, can you change this so it's not like only women like doing the cleaning? And they actually changed it.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, even though I'm not familiar with any of her educational accolades, she is a very intelligent woman. I've heard her speak. She's beautiful, gorgeous woman. Very lucky man, that prince. The point is, she didn't come from a schlub. She came from a very decent background, but yet in England, she would still be considered a commoner because she's not of royalty. And neither was Princess Di. And everybody kind of knows the story about that. How she passed away. A lot of people say it was an accident. A lot of people say it was a conspiracy brought by the Parliament to get rid of her. No one will ever know. Obviously, as Americans, we'll never know. I'm only going by the headlines and things I've seen since I was a kid when it happened. And I kind of feel the same thing about Meghan. Like, she's lucky they haven't tried anything, because it's just unlike the English culture as far as royalty and the royal family to allow somebody of her commoner presence be involved. And the poor girl has had to deal with a lot. And she's broke. I mean, I don't want to say break records, it's not them, but she's made history. Nobody black has ever done that. you know. So she's kind of an inspiration, and the fact that she's getting all this flack, you know, and Prince, you know, the Prince, you know, kudos to him for sticking by his woman, because I'm sure they have threatened him many a times and have probably told him, look, get rid of her or you're out of the family. Like, I'm sure he has been told some very horrible things since he's been with Meghan, and I just don't think it's fair, you know. But it just goes to show you how racism still plays a part in 2021.
Yeah, a lot of people think that racism is like strictly
it's not going anywhere. It's not going
like
anywhere.
strictly like Klansmen burning crosses and that's it. But like, like it's a lot more insidious and hides and other things, and it can be in a bunch of different comments. So a lot of people's intention is not to be racist, but what you say is still racist.
Yeah, it's egregious. It's incredibly egregious, and the fact that it's still going on, number one, but the fact that it's now proven this is actually racism is not just an America thing. It's an international fucking pandemic, like COVID. Yeah. It's all over the place. People just cannot seem to not accept people of color, and it's just sad. But you know, good kudos to her for sticking through all this and not saying. I probably any lesser person like myself, I probably would have just said, fuck this, dude. I'm going back to America. This is too much responsibility for me. If I, you know, if it was the reverse, if I was, you know, came up there as, you know, the first black prince or whatever, you know, whatever. I would have given up. She hasn't. So she, you know, kudos to her and kudos to the prince for having her back.
Yeah, he definitely has her back. And like, I think their titles are, I think they basically have renounced like their titles. So they're like living, I think in one of the interesting things that came up in the interview was they're in California now, and Tyler Perry actually put them up in their place for like a few months. Wow. And everyone was kind of like, wow, Tyler Perry kind of coming into the story out of nowhere. And someone on Twitter made a very good point. Like, you can say what you want about Tyler Perry and like the content he puts out in terms of his work and the quality of it, but in terms of as a person, you never hear anyone say a bad thing about Tyler Perry. And then another thing I thought was interesting was I never knew is Piers Morgan, the very controversial British tabloid journalist, has been basically always attacked Meghan Markle, has been very pro monarchy, but always against Meghan Markle. And we kind of got a little bit of inside information of maybe why he's been so mean towards her. And it basically boils down to they had a correspondence on Twitter, and we're going to meet up in England. This was way before she met, not way before she met Harry, right before she met Harry. And they met up for drinks. And then according to Piers Morgan, she ghosted him. So a lot of people are saying that he wanted to hook up with her or like go on a date with her, and she wasn't having it. And so now he's kind of upset that he got left for a prince, and that's why he's always like spewing venom at her, which is an interesting
He's a gross man.
He's terrible. He's leaving the show now. He's been calling out on his show. And yeah, that's basically it. I don't know if you have anything else to add before we move on.
No, I mean, it just, like I said, shout out and kudos to her and the prince for dealing with all this shit and not just giving up. I mean, they have gone estranged from the royal family, and I think that it's dangerous as that is, because the royal family is not happy with him. They don't care about her, but they're fucking pissed at him. And I fear for their safety at times. I mean, I know they're here in America and they're probably as safe as they're going to be, but you know, in England's our allies. They can get over here, and I fear for their safety, and I hope nothing happens to them at all. And I don't think so. I think they're fine, but it's just like I said, the whole Princess Di thing, man. You know, when you break that royal tradition, they don't like that shit, dude. They don't like it, and I know that for a fact. Like I said, I was involved with an English girl for years, and I learned a lot about their parliament. They're serious. They take that very seriously. So, kudos to them and bless them. I hope they prosper. And with that being said, let's move on to our next topic, Mr. Eustace.
So we are just celebrating the, I guess, death anniversary. I'm not sure if that's a term, of Biggie Smalls passing.
Oh, baby. Jesus, the notorious, just please us with your lyrical thesis. Oh, sorry. It's my Biggie impression.
That's good. I feel like you could do a Biggie impression. You could also probably do Gorilla Black impression.
And Shine.
And Shine, yeah.
Well, I could kill all three of them because they all relatively sound alike. That's funny. That's a good point.
So Biggie passed away on March 9th in 1997 and has still been it's an unsolved murder. It still hasn't been solved.
20-something years later,
Yeah. So there is a movie that should have been, I feel, released a couple years ago, starring Johnny Depp.
2018 is from what I read.
So Johnny Depp and Forest Whitaker, called City of Lies, which is about the death of Biggie, and I think it also ties into Tupac's death as well. The article I looked at was interesting. The headline said, "Oh, Johnny Depp's Tupac movie." I'm like, it's really a Biggie movie. I mean, unless we watch it and turns out it's a Pac movie, but they've been showing it as a Biggie movie, and it's been just, it's never been released. And there's been rumors about, like, the LAPD don't want it to be released. There's rumors about Johnny Depp because he's kind of been in a tailspin in terms of his career and kind of being problematic. And that might have something to do with it. But it's now finally going to be released. It's going to be released next week, March 18th. I think in theaters. I didn't see anything about streaming right away. So we might have to wait to see it because we can't go out and see movies in California. But how excited are you for this movie?
I'm anxious to see what they do with it. I'm not excited. The only excitement is just anything fucking hip hop, dude. Anything involving Biggie, especially. We've talked about this before. And a lot of you motherfuckers, especially from LA, especially from California, you're going to hate me. I'm not the biggest Pac fan. I'm sorry. Do I think he's incredibly important to the culture? Do I think he created avenues for artists to be outspoken, much like Eazy-E did and NWA did, with fuck the police and all their outspoken political talk? Yes, I do believe that. But as far as a rapper lyricist, he's just always been. I've always been Team Biggie. Sorry, it's not just because I'm from New York. It's just lyrically, Biggie's just it. And I can say that because I myself am a rapper and a lyricist. So if I were to dissect lyrics and break it down, Biggie has got a far better lyrical prowess than Pac. But I do respect Pac and I do show Pac, and I do believe he is one of the greatest as far as his impact in hip hop, not so much his lyrics, but his impact, definitely. So anything involving those two or anything involving that era of hip hop, especially the 90s, there's an excitement. But as far as the film, I'm very just anxious to see cinematography wise. I mean, it looks great from the trailer. The acting, it's funny too, because I don't know if you thought this, but when I first heard news of it, I very jokingly said to myself, is Johnny Depp playing Biggie? Jack Sparrow, he is a character actor. I don't know if that's going to be culturally acceptable, though. It's like, I was like, he's playing the detective that oversaw the case. Got it. It's, so that cleared up. But yeah, I'm interested in this. They're both phenomenal actors. Johnny Depp is amazing, of course. And boy, is that guy going through some shit right now with that whole Amber Heard situation. That poor, I could say that poor guy. Some people might say not a poor guy. He's getting what he deserves. I don't know the situation enough, but I do know this man's career is literally dissipating right before our eyes because of that whole situation. So shout out to Johnny Depp, man. I hope that works out. And Forest Whitaker, of course, is amazing. Oscar winner. He won for King of Scotland. I've yet to see that entire movie. Have you seen King of Scotland?
I have not.
A phenomenal performance, apparently. From clips I've seen like clips of it online and from the film. And Forest Whitaker, obviously, looks like he deserved it. So good for him. Listen, it's anything involving Biggie, Pac, especially involving their murders, is always a sensitive topic, and it's always something that's always been tucked away and kept under wraps because, there's so much controversy and so much conspiracy theory just surrounding it. And I was always told I grew up with a lot of hood dudes back east, and when I came to LA, that kind of were involved in gangs, and I heard a lot of stories from the inside about that whole Biggie and Pac situation. And everybody, brings it up. The biggest thing was back in the day when it first happened was that Biggie and Diddy got Pac killed. That was like the biggest thing. I remember that being a thing. Biggie got Pac killed or got him shot the first time. And Tupac believed that, which is why Tupac was so angry and started kind of beefing because him and Pac were best friends. Everybody knows the story. They were actually best friends until Pac got shot, and then he thought it was a setup, on the behalf of Diddy and Biggie, which I don't believe. But again, I wasn't there. I was a kid, so what do I know? But the story I heard, that was always one of the main stories. But then as I got older and I kind of hung around a few hood dudes, a few gang members that I kind of, I myself wasn't involved in, but, was that I knew that, I hung around. There were like stories that it was literally just two isolated situations. People say, and from what I've heard from some insight, again, from a couple of street people, that really the whole Pac incident was Pac got shot because of the guy they jumped at the was it MGM the night of the Tyson fight, which was the night he died. They beat the hell out of a gang member, one of his rivals or somebody he knew that I believe snatched his chain a couple months earlier or something like that. They ran into him in Vegas and beat the hell out of him. And from what I was told, that beating was the result of Pac getting shot. Like the dude was an active gang member. So when he got his ass beat, he called his homies and was like, yo, Pac just beat me up. This is where he's at. And they all ran up on him. That's the story I heard.
It makes the most sense too. It's like,
Exactly.
like if you do this, then the consequences will probably be this retaliation.
Exactly. And I kind of believe that story the most. I believe it was just an isolated thing. I think Pac just beat up a gang member and then got shot for it. That's gang life, especially in LA. As far as the Biggie incident, I also heard from a few street dudes who were involved in that was also a gang related, like a Crip blood related thing. Apparently, Diddy was paying off gang members to protect him and Biggie when they came to LA and all of Junior Mafia and all of Bad Boy. Again, this is a story I heard from an inside perspective. Don't know if it's the truth, but I kind of believe it. But apparently Diddy was paying off some gang members to protect them, and he stopped paying them and he owed them money. And when you owe gang members money, I would assume they start threatening you that they want their money. And the word around the camp is Biggie got shot because him and Diddy owed a bunch of gang members money. And they caught him in LA. He was in LA. They knew he was going to be out there, over there in Wilshire on Miracle Mile. And they got him. Again, that makes a lot of sense. Is it the truth? Is that what happened? We will never know. I believe it, though. I believe these were two isolated. This is just from my belief and from what I've heard, that these were two isolated incidences. Now, some would say on the conspiracy end that the police killed them both. There was a hit, to get rid of two outspoken rappers, but also two Black, at the time, political figures, not just in hip hop, but they were the voice of the culture at the time. These two, especially Pac. It's just, hopefully this movie will maybe shed some light. I don't know, but like you said, this is a situation that is 23, 24 years in the making, and I think this is just one of those things where we're all going to go to our graves not knowing genuinely what happened. You believe certain things, you'll hope certain things. Like the two stories I just told is what I believe happened. But again, I wasn't there. I don't know that. I'm not with the police. I'm not an investigator. I'm not a gang member. I can only go by what I heard. So to kind of end off my notion on it, the movie looks good. I think it's going to be some good acting, some good camera work, good storyline, and it's obviously a hip hop based film, a crime drama, but a hip hop crime drama. And I definitely want to check it out. And Vince, you have any last closing words about the whole Biggie and Pac experience? I actually, real quick, I actually do want to ask you, and then we'll move on. I do want to ask you, and give me your honest opinion. What was the scene like in Baltimore? Because that was the East Coast. You're an East Coaster like me. Because I know in New York, I remember it was you couldn't go anywhere without hearing about the whole Biggie and Pac experience. But what was it like for you, kind of growing up in hip hop and liking hip hop in Baltimore?
Well, I guess, and the I guess little liner note should be that I wasn't in like Baltimore City, so I can't like claim to be like, oh, I know what it was like in like the city, like in like Druid Hill Park or anything like that. I was more like in the
any
suburbs.
of the hoods, or any of the hoods, yeah.
I was like the homogenized, like just like white area. But both Biggie and Pac were they weren't pop stars, but they were mainstream stars. They weren't just like stars in hip hop. They were big stars. So everyone in my school knew and loved Biggie and Pac. I remember I was talking with some people about Pac. I remember I was at a party and we were talking about the conspiracy theory that he was really like not dead and that he was in Cuba. And then I remember
sitting on an island. Yeah.
And I remember distinctly in 8th grade, my friend Ellen like came into homeroom one day and was just like, Biggie Smalls was killed. And that's first I heard of it because I didn't have cable TV or anything like that. So I had to hear it like from her, like word of mouth and stuff like that. And then I remember after that, I feel like Biggie almost in a way got even bigger, at least in my school. Like people liked him, but I felt like after he died, like that's when everyone was listening to him. And that's when, Life After Death like came out like very shortly afterwards, and everyone was playing that. Everyone was listening to that. So yeah, it was different. That's sort of like what it was like, sort of like in the white suburbia part of Maryland. But yeah, I mean, Baltimore, I think Maryland as a whole, like they had love for Tupac because he also spent some time in Maryland. He like went to school there with Jada Pinkett.
Yeah, sure
but I also feel like, I could be mistaken, I feel like a lot of that East Coast, there's still that East Coast mentality in Baltimore and in Maryland, where it's kind of like, all right, like for the most part on 92Q, you're hearing mostly East Coast music.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing in New York. Yeah. I mean, they rarely, especially back then in the 90s, I remember, they played more East Coast hip hop in LA. I remember hearing more than they did back in New York when I was in New York growing up.
Well, they still do. They still like, if you listen to K-Day, like they'll play. I've heard more Ja Rule in LA than I've heard Ja Rule basically anywhere else since like 2001.
No, it's a fact. And it was like that even more so in the 90s. DJs, it's a known fact. East Coast DJs were not fucking with the South or LA during the 90s. It was just, and this is a fact. This is a hip hop historian fact. Because they just felt we started it. It started in New York and the Bronx, of course. We're the proprietors of this, and none of you niggas is gonna take it from us. and here's the thing: the South and LA weren't trying to, and even the Midwest, they weren't trying to really take hip hop. They just wanted a piece of that pie so bad because they loved hip hop too. But because they were kind of doing their own versions of it, it threatened a lot of New York DJs. So it just was a big thing. I actually found out about Pac and Biggie dying on the radio. I think I was still back east when I heard about Biggie passing away and again I was on the radio. It was probably Angie Martinez or Funkmaster Flex or somebody. And then I was in LA when I heard about Pac dying, and that was on like 92.3 The Beat. They had a DJ, not a KJ, a VJ named Theo. He was an Asian dude and he sounded black. It was hilarious. Everybody thought he was black. He was actually Asian. And I remember him making the announcement in Power 106. So that was how I found out about it. But we'll see, man. Hopefully this movie brings some light to the situation. It's not going to solve any crimes. It's just not. And I don't think that's ever going to really happen. There's just too much. There's too many people that can get in trouble for if this were to be, I believe, discovered on the reality of what happened. I think too many people's lives still, even to this day, are. And I think Diddy's one of them. Suge Knight. I think that anybody involved, they've got too much to lose by this being exposed. So City of Lies coming in, what is it, March 18th. Yep. You guys go check it out. And I'm going to check it out. Like you said, hopefully it'll be streaming because theaters are still shut down in LA. So that's just the way it is. And with that being said, Vince, let's kick it off to our what?
Hip hop, hip hop.
Hip hop, hip hop. It all started in the park. Hip hop. It all started in the park. Yo, I want to give a shout out to the two men the proprietors, the godfathers of this hip hop shit that I do, and the two men that made me the man that I am. That's DJ Hollywood and DJ Cool Herc, or Hercules. You know, I'm sure. Fun fact too: Busta Rhymes made a point in an interview. He did Drink Champ. Say that 10 times fast. And he made a point of saying that it's really West Indians that really started hip hop, because I believe DJ Cool Herc was West Indian, and he brought that Caribbean feel to hip hop, and that's kind of Busta Rhymes, who was also, I believe, Caribbean. He's of Caribbean descent. Apparently, West Indians, East Coast West Indians, are kind of the reason why hip hop is here. So
yeah, and Biggie didn't start hip hop, but he was Jamaican as well. So
yeah, a lot of West Indian. Same thing with 50 Cent. He's of Caribbean descent. A lot of West Indian Jamaicans can say that they kind of started hip hop. But shout out to DJ Kool Herc, DJ Hollywood, Vanilla Ice. You're not wanted. Sorry, that was random as fuck. Eminem,
no,
Eminem,
it's okay. It's okay.
Wanted.
I think it needs to be said. If it's random, you just need to keep them in check. You be like, hey,
Right.
We didn't forget about you.
Vanilla Ice. Vanilla Ice is not hip hop, you guys. I respect Vanilla Ice for wanting to be a part of hip hop, but he popped it up too much. He helped it. I'm not gonna lie, he did help it, but he popped it up. He watered it down. Vanilla Ice, you're not wanted. Eminem, you are very wanted.
I don't want to get too much into this because we actually have to talk about a real MC. But like Vanilla Ice, like he used to go on about like, man, the labels were, keeping me down. I wasn't making the music I wanted to make. Yeah, I didn't make the music I wanted to make. And then when he got a chance to make the music he wanted to make, I mean, it's rap, but it's not really hip hop. He's not really like, he's like going pop, like that new metal. He's going like ICP. Like it's like, oh, so when you have like, I guess the proverbial chains taken off you from the major labels, and you have the freedom to do whatever you want, this is the music you're making. This isn't hip hop. So like, I don't give him a pass.
And even real quick, even white people, like Third Base used to diss him all the time, because Third Base was doing some real hip hop. Like they were really about the culture. The Beastie Boys, I think, used to take shots at him too. Like any white rapper during that time that was actually doing real hip hop, even the white people were like, dude, you're fucking this whole thing up. Like you're not hip hop, bro. We're hip hop. Yeah. Like you're not. So Eminem, you're good. Vanilla Ice, gotta go. Third Base, you're good. Beastie
so we've
Boys,
we've been talking about a lot of MCs right now. We talked about Vanilla Ice, who's not a real MC. We talked about Biggie, who is arguably the greatest MC. Someone else who's arguably the greatest MC and sort of jostling for that King of New York crown ever since Biggie passed is Nas. Nas, one of the all-time best. Nas is so revered in hip hop, especially by like I like to think that even like the newer breed, even though they can be disrespectful to like the older guard, Nas is still held in very high esteem. So Nas was recently interviewed in the Financial Times magazine, and they were asking him how he felt about current hip hop. If there's any MCs or current rappers that are, I think they worded it in a way like, oh, that like are keeping you up at night or something like that. And Nas was, I find the headline was very clickbaity, where it's like, oh, Nas not impressed by today's rappers. But if you look at the article, he actually said like, oh, I just don't, there's no new rapper that has me losing sleep at night. Like I'll hear good music, I'll hear like good songs, and I'll listen to it and be like, oh, that was
sleep at night. I love that.
Like I'll listen to a song and be like, this is good, but then like maybe not really think about it a week later. And then he's just not seen that consistency. And my take on that is Nas, like, I'm not sure there was any there. I'm sure the rappers that made him lose sleep, even in his time, you count on like one hand. Like he's just a different breed, different level. So, and then I'm trying to think if he was just using a blanket statement for like sort of like these newer rappers like Lil Baby or The Baby or any of the babies, but not really thinking about like the Kendricks or the J. Coles or like a Corday, who I really like and I think is coming up as like a more conscious type of Nas type rapper. But as you've stated plenty of times before on the show, you are an MC. So does Nas have a point? Does Nas have a point here about today's crop of rappers?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and it's not because I'm an old head. I'm not as old as Nas. I actually was a kid the first time I heard Nas. So he's quite a few years older than both you and me. But I still come from that cloth, and I same here. I cannot genuinely think of any rapper that has made me lose sleep in the past 20 years, maybe since the early 2000s, mid 2000s was the last time rappers made me really feel like that I was coming into a game. It's been a while since I felt threatened. Let's just say that, because I myself am a rapper and I have been in the industry, not to the degree of the people we're speaking of, but I've had some accolades. I've had some independent success with my Broken Complex days and a couple other industry record labels that I've dealt with. So nobody's made me feel threatened in a very long time. I'm very confident that I can destroy these MCs, and just like Nas can currently. Listen, back in the late '90s, early 2000s, their rap was just, that whole backpack era was just, for me, was just incredible. And you want to talk about losing sleep? There's just, we were talking about this earlier. There were a number of rappers that literally had me tossing and turning, thinking about just the shit they were saying and lyrically. And DMX was one of them. DMX changed my life. The first time I heard his first two albums, I was like, this guy is the truth. He made me really, as a youngster, because I was more into the commercial stuff. I liked a lot of backpacking, but I, from a radio standpoint, liked a lot of the commercial stuff because I was still very young. So it's not like I was listening to mixtapes, and the internet wasn't really a thing back then. So you heard what you heard, which was the radio. So you were a radio star if you were in hip hop back in the '90s and early 2000s. Eminem, of course, changed my life. Redman changed my life. Ludacris. Redman, Ludacris, and Eminem are the two, or my three greatest MCs of all time. Somebody were to tell me who are my favorites, it's those three. Redman first, because I think I've told this story on the show before. When I was on tour at Broken Complex, a fan actually came up to me during one of the shows and was like, "You remind me of a young Redman." And boy, it took everything in my power not to cry. I was like, wow, he just so happens to be my favorite rapper. And he was like, yeah, you remind me of a young Redman. And I was like, yo, that's dope. I've been compared to Biggie, which was amazing. And humbling, because I'm just like, yeah, please don't give me that type of responsibility. But it's nice to hear that I've been told, because I got that East Coast swagger. And obviously these will remind, I don't rap like these guys. It's just that I bring that feel to these people, and they're saying that they're basically saying you're destined for greatness. And I as humbly as I could say, it brings a tear to my eye sometimes when I hear those things. But I don't get those feels the way I did back then now. And maybe it's because I'm older, and maybe because we're grown as fuck now. It could be that. But I still love hip hop like I loved it as a kid. So I still would at times feel or think that I would, those feelings would get evoked. I would evoke those feelings, but I don't. And there are a few that are incredible from this generation, or at least the past 10 years, that I really do at times like get chills. Again, it's rare, but Kendrick is one of them. That dude has been known to lyrically give me chills. Same thing with J. Cole. J. Cole, who's one of my favorite rappers as well. He's in my top 5. I put him up there. Um, YBN Cordae is dope. As far as the young generation, because Kendrick and J. Cole at this point are in their 30s, so they're starting to reach old head status, but they're still this current generation, but they're getting up there. They're up there.
Yeah, they're kind of vets at this point.
At this point, they're exactly they're past that, the youthful generation. Now they're the ideology of hip hop as a whole. They're part of the dead or alive crowd as far as best of. They're not just this generation. They have now graduated to all of hip hop since the 80s. They're part of that elite. I mean, that's really about it. You got King Los, you got Sci-Hi the Prince, King Los from your town.
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
Dope. But again,
he's older too. Because he's older than me. Actually, I thought he was. I always thought that he was born the same year as me, 1982. And then I see on his Instagram that he's turning 40 this year. So he was actually born in 81. And I was like, oh shit. All this time I thought like we were about the same age and you're like a year older than me.
Yeah, he's older than both you and me. So he's definitely old head status. Who else? That's really about it. I mean, you have people like Dave East, who people call real hip hop. Joey Badass.
Yeah, Joey
Remember,
Badass is good.
he was
Oh,
considered like
Rhapsody.
some real.
I love Rhapsody.
Yeah, she's dope.
Rhapsody's probably about our age as well, but she's kind of getting her shine now, and she's incredible.
Yeah, matter of fact, one of the articles, we're not talking about it. Who's praising her right now? Charlemagne the God, right?
It was Charlemagne, who doesn't praise many people.
Charlemagne the God is that guy.
But no,
he's
if
tough.
he likes you as a
crowd.
rapper, if he likes you as a rapper, there's a chances are like pretty dope. Like, there's so many rappers who get mad when they go on Breakfast Club and he's like, I'm not a fan of yours, or like, I think you're whack. You seem like a nice person, but I don't like your music. And almost, I gotta say, every single one of those rappers that he says that about, I'm not really a fan of their music. Like, there's a couple people like Yellow Wolf that I'm like, oh, I think you're talented. I think like you're good.
Well, he said that about Machine Gun Kelly, and I was like, I agree with you, Charlemagne.
See, I agree, and this is before the
MGK
Eminem stuff.
MGK is a decent rapper. He doesn't suck, but I'm just saying, I have to agree. I wasn't a fan back then either, and this was years ago when he said that about MGK.
He did it with Safari. Like, he was just like, no.
Yeah. Who the fuck? When's the last time you heard a nigga say, man, I can't wait till that nigga Safari drops some shit, bro? This is I cannot wait. I am checking for this nigga Safari. Have you heard anybody in life ever say that? Like, no.
The most I've ever heard is, I've heard some people be like, you know what? Safari is not as bad as you would think. And then I listen to it, I'm like, no, this is as bad as I thought it was going to be.
The best you could get, right?
Yeah. There's some people who are like, it's not terrible. I'm like, it is.
Listen, when to go back to the original point, when somebody like Nas says something like that and he goes on record about saying that, you have to respect it, dude. You're talking about a nigga that defined one of the defining factors of hip hop, bro. He came out in the early to mid 90s and came in the scene, just destroyed it. And a lot of people don't realize he was pretty much discovered by MC Search from Third Base.
Yeah.
Was kind of the man that shopped him around. If you look at multiple interviews with MC Search, you know,
I know who I paid. Searchlights Publishing.
There you go. He doesn't claim Nas, but he does say, I was kind of the guy that put him on. He always praises Nas, and he says, I shopped him around. I gave him a big break on it was MC Search's solo album. He gave him, and he killed it. And of course, like, MC Search and the rest of the rappers on that song were probably like, damn, we should have came harder, because this Nas kid just like Eminem on Jay-Z's Renegade. Nas murdered MC Search on his own shit.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that. MC Search was like, and he did, and he's okay with that. But you gotta respect when a Nas says that, dude. And I know a lot of these young heads say to us old heads, yo, fuck y'all ain't giving us a chance. You're not giving yourselves a chance, because a lot of you niggas ain't trying. It's just try. Nobody's asking everybody, and not everybody can be a lyricist, I get it. But at least be tangible. At least pronunciate and enunciate your lyrics. All this mumbling and the same auto tune. You know, Ari Spears, who's not a favorite comedian of mine, but I follow him and I do like his stuff. And his videos are just hilarious and very aggressive at times. But he made a point of saying, he did a post on Instagram saying that all you niggas sound the same. The cadence is the same. The mumbling is the same. The singing, the auto tune, the delivery, it's all the same. Nobody knows who the fuck anybody is. And it's already bad enough you got two babies. You got Da Baby and Lil Baby. And both them niggas probably sound alike.
Here's the thing. I'm not sure I'm not sure I can differentiate how they sound. I know some of the Baby's music. I know that
some of the Baby.
I
He's
know
like
what
the
the Baby looks
right now.
I know who the Baby is. I can like see him, and I'm just starting to. Lil Baby, I think Lil Baby is a pretty big rapper too, and I'm always every time I hear Lil Baby, I think it's the Baby. But I know when I see a picture of the Baby, it's like, oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Whereas Lil Baby, I'm like, oh, all right, I'm still trying to familiarize myself with your face.
And to be honest with you, in his defense, the Baby isn't terrible. He's one of the SoundCloud this generation young rappers that if you listen to some of his stuff, the stuff I've heard like on the radio or on the internet, he doesn't really mumble. He doesn't do the mumbling thing. He actually raps. But it's just it's the same cadence though. It's just nothing special about none of these new rappers. None of them niggas is just, and that's just the way it is. So to hear that from Nas, you got to respect it. Do you have any closing things about Mr. Escobar?
No,
nonsense?
I think we should move on to another great rapper,
All right.
Soldier Boy.
Ah,
Soldier Boy, tell him to
you
you.
and that crank that soldier. I see you. Oh God,
So
I used to do
Soldier
that
Boy,
dance.
so Soldier Boy. This story is actually going to, and this is a reference to Nas. We're going to bridge the gap between
Hey,
hip hop and
hey,
wrestling.
do it.
That was a good album. Uh,
It was good song too. Great
I love
sample
that song.
with his
Great,
dad on
yeah,
it.
yeah. That might be my favorite song off the album.
That sample is
But
amazing.
Soldier Boy is in the news for beefing with the legend killer,
The
the apex
Viper,
predator, the Viper, Randy Orton.
or his full name, Randall Keith Orton. Get it right.
Yes, the three most devastating letters in sports entertainment, RKO.
Yes, sir.
So I think Soldier Boy was trying to vent his frustration with the music industry and the rap game in general. And so he was saying like, oh, like I swear, like you rap dudes or like the rap game is as fake as WWE. Because and like as we're wrestling fans, obviously we don't like to use the term fake, but it's become a thing like ever since we were growing up. It's like, oh, wrestling is fake. It's because it's predetermined. The only thing that's fake is the outcome, but everything else is like the athleticism is there.
Yeah, the bumps. So, they take bumps.
So of course the wrestlers took great offense to this, and also see this as a way. I'm not saying that they're clout chasing, but they're like, oh, here's a way for us to sort of like
bridge the gap.
Yeah, like
hip hop and wrestling.
So I think T-Bar and Orton both kind of went after Soldier Boy, but it was Orton, the bigger star.
Alexa Bliss too. Even Alexa Bliss had some words.
Oh, Alexa went in as well.
Yeah, she kind of went in. You can look it up. There's an exchange. She
well,
does it kind of from a kayfabe standpoint because she's doing this whole Fiend gimmick. But
right.
She mentioned something real quick before I forget. She mentioned something about Soldier Boy, and Soldier Boy's retort was, he posted a GIF. He tweeted out a GIF of her doing the Soldier Boy dance during a match with Asuka. And her response was, and you could tell she's just being sarcastic because she knew what the dance was. She's like, oh, I didn't know that was you. I was just mocking Asuka. She's like, that's your song? Oh, she was just playing. It was all a ruse, but she was basically saying, like, motherfucker, I don't know who you are.
Actually, I believe her because Asuka, I think, just kind of does that dance on her own.
Yeah.
And Soldier Boy allegedly hits women, so Alexa should.
So they say.
Be ready to throw down. So Orton
he can whip his ass.
Oh, absolutely. Orton and Soldier Boy are going at it on Twitter, and it's like, I don't know what your take on it is. I was Team Orton, but I feel like Orton's also now kind of sliding into like
clout,
risky territory. Like he said, like, hey, tell your like which of your baby mamas do I have to thank for you? Like, and it's like, hey, Randy, like
keep family
like,
members.
You're teetering. Like you're
keep
teetering.
Keep the innocent out of it,
And then also, and I don't know if you saw this, Soldier Boy was streaming, playing video games, and he kind of gave a rant on the WWE that I think you actually might agree with, where he was saying like, man, I used to watch Stone Cold and The Rock. He's like, I love John Cena and I love like these people, but everyone else, I swear, is trash. Like I tried to watch recently and like it's terrible. So he's going
that Soldier Boy.
Soldier Boy, yeah.
He's
he's going in amongst the very popular opinion in the internet wrestling community that WWE is not the same as it used to be.
Which is obviously those are facts. It isn't. I mean, excuse me, we've discussed this many times on the show. Me and you come from a way better era of wrestling, and that's the 90s Attitude Era, and even some of the new generation, even the Golden Era stuff with Hogan and all them. Like those were good days. As far as the listen, I appreciate. I was Team Orton as well because and here's the thing: I don't. As a person of color, I try to do my best to not go against a successful African American that's doing things. I don't look up the Soldier Boy. I do appreciate he's at least a black man that has had success. I don't, from a hip hop standpoint, I don't appreciate the way he did it. But sadly, he is an innovator in hip hop. He's just the new generation of innovation. By that, he was one of the first rappers to go viral on the internet. He was the first real internet rapper.
And using the internet to build
utilizing it.
success. Yeah.
So that is an innovation because it has helped me as a hip hop artist be able to put my music out and do stuff like that because they weren't really doing that. So shout out to him for doing that. Other than that, I'm not a fan, and I hate going against people of color when it comes to that. But I was Team Orton because Soldier Boy he annoys the fuck out of me. His interviews are annoying. Everything is cap this, cap that. These niggas is cap. You rappers is cap. Which, for those who don't know, cap means fake. It's hood talk for the word fake. It's everybody's capping. He's capping. Who's more capped than Soldier Boy? Like, bro. You know, and all this internet shit he does, you know, like he wants to smoke. Shout out to the Street Profits. He don't want to smoke. I don't think Soldier Boy's hard. He tells this story in an interview about how he had to shoot robbers in his house. They broke into his house. I don't know if that happened or not. It might have. I guess there was a report about it from the police. So I guess it maybe did happen. But his account of it just sounded so cap. You know, he was on Breakfast Club and he was telling Charlamagne how at one point he ran up on one of the robbers and put the gun to his head. And he was going to shoot him in the back of the head and blow his brains out. And I'm just like, bro, you're not about that life like that. You were not about to do any of that. I don't believe any of that portion of the story. And it's annoying when these young rappers come on, and he ain't that young. He's in at his early 30s at this point now too. So it's like you're too old now at this point to be talking that Soldier Boy shit like when you were 17. You know, Orton did handle it well at first, I do believe, and now I do kind of agree. He's clout chasing now. He's bringing in the innocent, and that's one thing you don't do when it comes to beef, whether it be internet beef or hip hop beef or comedy beef. Kind of leave other people's family members and leave the innocent out of it.
And because
they
it's
can't
not
defend themselves.
because it's not based because it's not based in truth. Soldier Boy doesn't have any baby mamas. He's like, I don't have any kids. He's like, so what are you talking? So
What he knows of.
but since that is now out there, it now looks like what Orton said is racist because it's like, oh, you're just assuming that like these black rappers have baby mamas everywhere.
Sadly, slightly racist, a perpetuated stereotype, but there is a lot of truth to that. As a black man, I can say that these niggas do be popping out babies, but no, I hear what you're saying. It's just that's not the way to go. You're treading territory. You're bringing in the innocent, but mostly you're now making this somewhat of a racial issue. Do
you think that we'll see Orton versus Soldier Boy? Are they going for an angle? Is this going to become something?
Well, listen, they're bringing in what's his name, Bad Bunny at WrestleMania.
Bad Bunny, 24/7 champ.
Yeah, he's supposed to him and Damian Priest, I believe, because the Miz we'll get into that, and that'll be the next segment we'll get into about the whole Miz dropping the title to the Almighty. But it's supposed to be the Miz and John Morrison because the Miz lost the title, so now he's back relegated to a match with Bad Bunny and Damian Priest.
But at the same time, like the fact that he it's a high profile match. It might be the highest profile match in terms of mainstream. So that's actually like a good thing. So in the wrestling world, it seems like a demotion, but in like mainstream world, oh my God, this is the match you want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the likes of Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow. You remember that? It's the likes of Snooki when she came in, which it was stupid. Fun fact.
She actually wasn't bad. Snooki was okay.
She worked. They trained her decently. Fun fact. I don't know if you know this, but a few years ago, I can't remember which year it was, but apparently there was supposed to be a SummerSlam main event with John Cena and Justin Bieber as a tag team against, I can't remember who their opponents were going to be. I actually want to say it was The Miz and somebody else. But apparently that was at one point a plan Vince McMahon was going to go through with because Justin Bieber was just so huge during that time and still is. And hell, they still might. But I was like, God, that would have been so horrible. But it would have brought so many eyes on the product, you know.
Well, yeah, it would have been terrible because everyone, as popular as Cena was,
they pulled it.
Everyone was booing Cena, or he got mixed reactions. So teaming in with Bieber, they were going to get booed out of the arena as the good guys.
Yeah, they were going in as the baby faces, and apparently management pulled it, and thank God they did because I think that would have been a disaster. But my point of bringing that up is those marquee matches, like Floyd Mayweather and Big Show. Remember that?
That wasn't bad.
No, that was pretty good. That was actually a good match. I just watched that a few weeks ago on YouTube. It actually was pretty decent. But those high profile matches do bring eyes to the product from a mainstream contemporary standpoint, not from a wrestling standpoint. But now the world is watching. So Soldier Boy versus Randy Orton would be. Remember, they used to say it all the time. That's what's best for business.
Yep.
From a marketing standpoint. Soldier Boy needs to shut his mouth. Randy Orton needs to calm down now, and it's like, just move on. It's not that serious. And then book the match. Book it. Fuck it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'd watch it. Put it at WrestleMania. They have a very stacked card for WrestleMania, and they have 2 nights to fill. So there we go. That could be one of the matches. Although that's not going to happen. Randy Orton, I believe, him and the Fiend, Bray Wyatt.
Yeah,
they've
been building for that. Yeah, like you can't throw that away. That's what they're building towards.
So anyway, shout out to Soldier Boy. Shout out to Randy Orton. It's entertaining as fuck.
Yeah.
When social media is like that. So there you go.
All right, and that's the perfect time to bridge the gap to the wrestling segment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, usually right around this time, Vince, ages ago, when we were both young, strapping chaps, I used to do an intro that involved 2 people. You might know where I'm going with this. One of your favorite films of all time. You watch it on a regular basis. It involves a guy who used to be the 1, 2, 3 Kid. Then he evolved to X-Pac. And then it evolved to a lady who's no longer with us. I don't know if you're familiar with this film. Academy Award-winning stuff. One of your favorite movies. You know anything about that? Sex tape?
I like to think that I know a lot about Academy Award-winning movies, so I probably do. Academy Award-winning movies, what is it?
Yeah. Nominated, critically acclaimed. Your favorite film, One Night in China. Yeah, baby. Remember that?
Not familiar
What?
with One Night in China.
Oh yeah.
Is that the 6 Days, 7 Nights with David Schwimmer and Anne Heche?
No. It's your, very adult.
And Harrison Ford.
No.
He was the lead in that.
No, it's China, Xbox.
You seem to know a lot about it, so I'll take your word for it.
Listen, I'm just trying to enlighten you. I know that you love that stuff. But anyway, wrestling, yes.
So we normally talk about WWE, and I guess in a way we are talking about WWE, but we'd be remiss to not talk about AEW, the company that Cody Rhodes and Tony Khan have started
All Elite Wrestling.
And
and the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks as well.
They're doing their thing. They've been beating NXT pretty consistently in the ratings, so much so that NXT is rumored to have moved to another day because of that, but I think it's for other reasons. But AEW is now starting to get some. I mean, they're starting to pick up some big talent from the WWE. Now, it's not necessarily like the current big names for WWE, but there are big names from yesteryear who could still go. Big Show.
I love how you said they're picking up big talent.
There's the Big Show, formerly known as Big Show, Paul White, which no one saw coming. It was like, I really thought he was going to retire in the WWE, and he still might. But then when Big Show came on AEW, he goes, "Oh, I've got a big announcement at the pay-per-view this weekend.
Revolution, right?
Yeah. There will be another big signing from the WWE. Not WWE. He said there'll be another big signing. It's going to shock the world. He's a Hall of Fame caliber talent, and he dropped all these clues that made you think, oh, could it be Lesnar? Could it be CM Punk? Could it be Kurt Angle? Christian was brought up as well, and it turned out it was one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time, Christian, now going as his former indie TNA name, Christian Cage.
Captain Charisma, the Peep Show himself. Where my peeps at? That was his whole
And
thing.
this was kind of a surprising thing because he made a surprise return at the Royal Rumble this year, and he looked in phenomenal shape. Everyone thought he was kind of done with wrestling because of injuries, but he looked great in the Royal Rumble. So everyone was thinking, man, he might have a spot in the WWE
contract.
Either.
Yeah.
And I guess things just didn't quite work out with the contract, and he went to AEW. And I read an interview that explained why he did it. And much like when he left WWE for TNA, he's so smart and he's just a good dude. He never badmouths WWE. He's just like, hey, the way
Well,
how they run.
he doesn't want to burn that bridge. I don't blame him. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, hey, the way they run things, nothing wrong with it. It's just for me personally, as a man and as a wrestler, here's where my journey was going. So I think the door is open for WWE return at some point. But that was the big thing in AEW. What's your take on Christian jumping ship, so to speak?
Yeah, Christian Cage. When I saw the news, the same thing on social media. I saw all the buzzings on the internet about the new, when Big Show came out, or Paul White, he now goes by his real name, Paul White. When well, it's remember the Rock used to be, well, it's the Big Slow. Great shit. Oh god, I used to love when the Rock made fun of Big Show. It's hilarious. What was I saying? Yeah, he goes by Paul White. When he made the announcement, well, first, real quick, when I saw Big Show, I was just like, oh man, it was rough to see that, because you wanted him to be like the new age Undertaker, where he comes into even though he originally came from WCW, but still he came to WWE really early, when it was WWF during the Attitude Era, and you kind of wanted him to be where he lies, and like you said, he might, but at least as right now, the next few months, maybe the next few years, he's all elite. He's hashtag all elite. So that was hard to see. And then Christian comes in when Big Show made the announcement, and that Sunday he came in, and that was rough for me in my life as well, because I thought Christian was team WWE till he dies. I don't know where I know he did some indie stuff, but him and Edge pretty much came into WWE relatively right around the same time, and they've been WWE their entire career. With the exception of the TNA tenure. I know Edge definitely hasn't been anywhere else that I know of. I don't think he never jumped.
I think actually it's weird. I think he technically, I could be mistaken, I think he did some stuff in WCW, but like as like a jobber enhancement talent or something. He wasn't like a name on it. But I want to say I could be mistaken. He may have been in WCW for like a second, like literally maybe a match.
A lot of those guys did some jobbing work. They were some jobbers in the Indies and in WCW and ECW. There was a couple of guys that even came from ECW at one point. I know Stone Cold came from ECW and he was in WCW. So a lot of those guys jumped to WWE when WWE got really popular, and that was right around the Attitude Era. That's when a lot of those wrestlers in WCW. That's when the Big Show came over. Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, all those guys jumped over right around the booming era of wrestling of WWE. As far as Christian, listen, I said this before. WWE is in a very compromising predicament, because this is almost, to the degree, not completely, because it was far more detrimental and way more exciting and way more competitive, and way more backstabbing too, between both companies. But this is the closest to a WCW, WWF, WWE Monday Night War era situation. This is the closest we've gotten since then. Because AEW is, at this point, a full-on threat to the WWE. The WWE has not had a threat like this since WCW and ECW, more so WCW. Because at one point, WCW almost put them out of business. It was that close, 97, 98. If it wasn't for a few factors, and a few wrestlers and a few business moves, WWF would have lost. And we would be probably watching WCW as a product now. Who knows? But they didn't. But this is the closest it's been. And now that the wrestling business, because TNA, I shit on TNA. They've never been a threat to WWE ever. And here's the thing about TNA. They actually had some 5-star talent. Hogan has been to TNA. Okay.
Or even they had AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle,
and they had they had Mick Foley. They literally had legends go over there. R-Truth went over there for a little while.
He started there. Like, he didn't start there, but like when they started the company, he was the first. Yeah, he was like one of their first champs after Shamrock.
So as shitty as that company's product is, they've actually had some fucking 5-star talent. It's just their product is just shit. The talent was the only thing they had. The product was, to me, it just looked, every time you turn to TNA, it just looked depressing. It looked like it's just a cold, dark building. The wrestlers just looked depressed, and I'm just like, what a horrible product. But AEW has given wrestlers options, and if you are a legend and you have been loyal to the WWE and you feel like the WWE is not being loyal to you, whether that be money, a contract dispute, whether it be a storyline, because a lot of these guys are too old to be involved in consistent storylines anyway. Christian being one of them. I know he's in good shape, and he's still he's probably in his Edge. He's probably about Edge's age. They're probably late 40s, early 50s, but they, a lot of these talent, these legends aren't, especially a Big Show, they're not in enough good shape and age wise to be doing full storylines. Edge is doing it. He's involved in a full program right now with Roman and has been since he has returned. He has been involved in full programs. So Edge is going. So I guess maybe I can't say that for everybody, but it's AEW has allowed wrestlers to have options where there were none. There haven't been options in over 20 years. And now that there is, if they're not happy, they're getting the fuck out of there, dude. And AEW is very much doing a WCW-esque tactic to where they're like, hey, come over to us. They're not treating you well. We'll take you. We'll treat you better. And apparently AEW is treating these guys so far. Who knows what this company will be in the next few years. But apparently AEW are treating these guys very well that jumped from WWE to AEW. Rusev, he jumped over there. Who else? Bastard Pac,
Jericho,
who used to formerly be Neville, Jericho. There was quite a few people that have gone over there. Brody Lee, rest in peace, he went over there. Formerly Luke Harper.
Yeah, the
There's
FTR.
A couple of divas. FTR. A couple of divas jumped over there too. But it's just they're giving options, and Vince should be scared. He should be. And then WWE should be doing their best to keep their talent happy. And in certain cases, they are. They're paying. Apparently, this is the biggest money contracts WWE's put out probably since the Attitude Era. They are paying since the WCW days. They are paying these wrestlers well to keep them. In maybe not utilizing them or using them or shelving them or burying them, but they're paying them well. They're paying them very well. So shout out to AEW for opposing as a genuine threat to the WWE. And we'll see. To end this off, how do you feel Christian and Big Show are going to do over there? You think they're going to put them over?
No, I think they're going to be there to kind of to help out with the younger talent. I think they're going to put other guys over. Yeah, they're going to use their big names to put over like the new talent.
And they should be at that age. They should be putting the boys over, which is the term for wrestlers. It's a backstage term. The boys. They always refer to the girls and the boys. So they definitely should be over there putting the boys over. And shout out to them, dude. They're probably being paid so fucking well. I'm jealous. The checks that these guys are getting into their account is phenomenal. I can imagine. Shout out to AJ Styles.
But the WWE does have some tricks up their sleeves in order to combat any sort of, threat in a rival company. And even though they're getting critiqued for not booking things very well, one of the things I think is universally being considered a great booking decision is the almighty Bobby Lashley.
Yes, we have entered the undisputed era of the almighty. I love when what's his name? Michael, what's the guy? Phillips. I think that's his name. He was on commentary.
Todd Phillips?
Todd Phillips. When he said
Todd Phillips is a while back. I don't know who you're talking about.
No, not Todd Phillips. Yeah, the current guy. I think is I can't think of his name. His name is Phillips, something Phillips. But he was on commentary. It was him, Samoa Joe, and I believe Byron Saxon. And when Phillips, when Lashley made Miz tap out to win to go over in the match to win the title, when he said that, I literally got chills. He put him over so great. It was amazing when he said that.
Wait, it's Tom Phillips. Sorry, I was confused.
Tom.
I was thinking Todd Grisham and Tom Phillips. Yes.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. Sorry about that. So Tom Phillips was on commentary. He was the main. He was playing JR. He was the main color commentary. And when he made the Miz tap, when he said that, I was just like, that's so fucking awesome. He put Bobby over so great with that line, the undisputed era of the almighty. I was like, yeah.
I think I was a little confused. I'm not a big Miz fan. So when he won the title, the way they did it, where Lashley beat up McIntyre after his grueling
Elimination Chamber, yeah.
Elimination Chamber match, and then beat him up. And then Miz came out, Money in the Bank, beat him. I was upset. My two friends loved it because they loved the Miz, and I was like, "This is stupid, Miz."
I was confused.
Like,
I was just like, yeah, I was like, what? Okay. I mean, they have to do something.
And then I heard some people saying some things like, if Miz is a transitional champion, this doesn't make any sense. I think Cornette may have said this, or maybe the guys who were really into AEW, but they were like, it doesn't make sense because you had McIntyre, who's a face. You have Lashley, who's a heel. So why don't you just have Lashley beat McIntyre for the title instead of having a heel versus heel with Miz and Lashley? Until I saw how Lashley beat Miz, which is he just beat the shit out of him. It was a squash match. It was a squash match. So it made him look so strong that now it builds for the Lashley McIntyre WrestleMania match, where it's like, okay, McIntyre lost kind of under unfair circumstances, and Lashley looks, I've never seen anyone look as good as Bobby Lashley in a very long time. He looks like a monster. He looks like a world beater.
No, he definitely. Shout out to Bobby, the Almighty Bobby Lashley, man. He looks great. He looks like what a champion should look like. He's also. I'd be remiss to not address the elephant in the room. He is a person of color. He is a black man, and this officially makes him the fifth if you count the heavyweight title. But we're not going to count that because to me that's always been a secondary title. But if we're talking about the main world title, he is the third ever black champ. So kudos to him.
Behind The Rock and Kofi.
Yeah, they're the first two, and then he's the third. So kudos to Bobby in the WWE for doing that. It shouldn't have taken this long.
I feel we also need to give a lot of credit to MVP for how he's just rejuvenated
Benjamin Shelton,
Lashley's career.
Shelton Benjamin,
Shelton Benjamin. Cedric Alexander, who was kind of a talented person, but was being kind of like wasted. Now they were jobbing him out. Now they are all. This is such a great, powerful faction, and they are taken seriously, and it's been great long-term booking because, like, I'm not sure if you saw this, but there's like little things where, if you go back and watch on YouTube, where MVP goes up to Lashley and is explaining to him like, here's why we should join forces.
It was during that awful Lana storyline.
And he did the same thing with Shelton Benjamin. And then he also did stuff with McIntyre where he goes, when you lose that title, I will have personally played a role in that. Yeah, and it's like, God, like MVP, who I've always liked, I feel like this is going to be his legacy. Like the like when he's in the Hall of Fame, they're going to look at this run. They're going to look at this run as like his legendary years, because he had great years before as like a mid-card wrestler, but this is like where now he's one of the top guys in history now.
And he's up there in age as well. I believe he's either pushing 50 or in his 50s. I don't know his exact age, but most of those guys are in their late 40s to early 50s from that era. And for him to come in this late in the game and be killing it and crushing it the way it is, and not even so much as a wrestler, he is going to go down. At this point, he's Paul Heyman status. He's going to go down as one of the greatest mouthpieces. Paul Heyman is one of the greatest, not only bookers and promoters, but Paul Heyman is one of the greatest mouthpieces in the history of the WWE. If I were to put him on that list, I'd have to put Bobby Heenan, another one of the greatest mouthpieces. There's quite a few as far as management and people that represent. There's others, but MVP is now in that legacy of the greatest mouthpieces and the greatest bookers. When he first came in, it was supposed to be a one-off. They were going to have him. He came back at the Royal Rumble. It was he basically did that for his kids. He just wanted his kids to finally see him wrestle because they were old enough. They were going to offer him a producer position backstage, and then management was like, you know what? How would you feel about being on screen? We'll just see how. They were just going to throw him a bone, to throw him some extra money. I think MVP probably was like, I don't really want to be wrestling, but sure, I'll do some on-screen stuff. And I believe that was probably the best decision WWE and him ever made, because 2020, which was a horrible year, obviously due to the pandemic, and we're still in the pandemic. COVID has not gone anywhere, but there was a lot of shit TV because of the pandemic last year, and one of the best things, like you said, was the Hurt Business. And business is good.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you this. I know you say you're not a huge sports fan. How familiar are you with like the NBA?
Relatively, you know, I suck
do,
at that.
do you know Spurs coach Greg Popovich?
I've heard of the name, but enlighten me on.
I swear I'll tie this into wrestling. Popovich,
Sure.
Spurs are my team. Popovich is considered
San
one of the greatest.
Antonio.
He's one of the greatest coaches of all time, and his thing, as opposed to like Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson is really good at managing egos and superstars, where Popovich is really good at taking underrated talent and turning them into champions. So I feel that MVP is the Greg Popovich of the WWE, where he's taking underrated talent that isn't really being used well, and he brings out the best in them and is able to make them fulfill their complete potential.
Would you feel he's they always note him as one of the greats. He used to coach the Lakers. Pat Riley.
Pat Riley.
Is would he be revered as like one of the greatest, like as far as coaching?
Yeah, I would say,
like Phil Jackson. 3. Yeah, no,
I would say he's top 3. Some would argue he's the best of all time, but Red Auerbach's in there as well. But like, he's definitely like top 5. I would say he's always in the conversation for best coach of all time.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime I've ever heard about Phil Jackson or some other coach that's great, they always bring up Pat Riley with that whole Lakers run. I agree. I would have to. Like, my knowledge on the NBA is slim, but it's enough to know who some of the greats are.
That's who MVP is in the WWE. He's the guy who's just like, oh, I see your talent, and let's just blow it up.
Yeah. And even though he is on screen, they probably still do have him in a producer position. And I really strongly believe he went up to Vince and he was like, look, these are the guys you should be putting over Vince. This is just my opinion. And Vince, being as stubborn as he was, and even Triple H, as stubborn as they can be, they probably sat down MVP and they were like, look, you're right. Let's do this. Let's start this faction. And the faction is it's a spinoff of the Beatdown Club that they had in TNA, right?
Right.
Bobby Lashley and MVP started that back then, so it's kind of an extension of that, right?
And I feel that Vince, I feel like Vince has always been big on Lashley, so it probably didn't take a lot of convincing for him to be like, yeah, like let's make him champion. It was just, how do we do it? Because when he came back, like it wasn't that big a deal. Like when he's wearing the baseball cap, it's like this thing with his sisters, like nothing was working. So it's like, here's the path for Bobby Lashley, not only to be a credible champion, but to make you a lot of money.
Absolutely. And his run since he's been back has been up and down. This is definitely his greatest run ever since he came 17 years ago. His first run was decent. They did try to put him over. They made him a powerhouse. He looked like he was going to be, as Roman Reigns used to say, the guy. But it didn't work out that way. He never became a champion. They kind of fizzled away. Then he left. And then when he came back, they threw him into the babyface picture. And like you said, that was kind of weak. The whole promo, that horrible promo he cut in that interview where he's talking about his sisters, I was just like, oh, please shut up. It was so cringy. And I was just like, oh, WWE, your scripted promos are so horrible. And then they threw him with Lio Rush, and that was a good run when he won the Intercontinental Championship. He was a heel. They turned him heel for the first time, and he killed it. I think that was a good time to put the championship on him, too, with Lio Rush. And then Lio Rush got heat, and they took Lio Rush off television, and unfortunately that affected Bobby Lashley because they didn't know what to do with him. So Bobby left, and when he came back, they threw him in this awful, very Attitude Era-esque, because that's what it kind of reminded me of, but they did it better back then. Stupid love sex angle, and he gets married with Lana. And I like Lana. Lana, she's not the greatest wrestler, but she's actually she's a good mouthpiece. She's good. She looks good. First of all, she's an attractive woman, but she does good on-screen work. It just wasn't a good fit, and it fizzled. Thank God it did, because they spent almost a year on that shit. And then they threw him in the Hurt. Then they threw MVP. They fed him the MVP in a good way, and they started the Hurt Business. So look, Bobby Lashley is destined for greatness, I think. I am fearful, and we'll kind of end it off on this because we got to head to that outro. I am fearful that they're gonna have him drop that title to Drew at WrestleMania because Drew didn't get a proper WrestleMania moment last year because of COVID. It was in an empty arena when he went over Brock. So they might still feel bad for Drew, and they might say, "Look, fine, we'll go ahead," because there's supposed to be tickets are on sale now. I don't know if you know that. Tickets are actually on sale for WrestleMania. And I'm sure they're going to have COVID safe regulations, but they're going to still have at least a few thousand people at that stadium in Florida. So we'll see how that goes. And they might want to give Drew McIntyre from Scotland. They might want to give Drew his big moment. And I like Drew. Drew's actually done very well as a champion. I don't know if he was a big draw per se because there were no crowds. But as far as on screen, he's been one of the best champions we've had in a few years.
Yeah, he's been very strong.
They've kept him strong.
I think that McIntyre, no matter who wins at WrestleMania, I don't think it's done. I think honestly, it would be in their best interest to keep building their feud to SummerSlam.
They need to keep the strap on Bobby. Yeah.
I mean, if Drew wins, let's say Drew wins, then they need to still be like butting heads, and then have it build to a SummerSlam, and then the other guy, and then Lashley would win, or like vice versa. Bobby retains, and then Drew wins at SummerSlam. But I think that those are two guys on Raw that need to be in the main event picture, basically for the rest of the year.
No, I agree. 2020 should be Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre's year, just like
2021. We're in 2021 now.
Well, 2020 was the year of Drew McIntyre. Now 2021 should also be the year of Drew McIntyre, along with Bobby Lashley. I hope they do the right thing because they're putting Bobby over so strong. Again, I like Drew, but Bobby should just demolish Drew at WrestleMania to keep him looking like a beast. And from now till WrestleMania, they should have Bobby just tearing through guys like a Brock Lesnar. They need to give Bobby a Brock Lesnar run to where he's tearing through guys. I always say it, and not to make comparisons, but they need to. Bobby Lashley needs to be the black Brock Lesnar, Black Lesnar, and by that I mean booking, not the comparisons. You know, he shouldn't be trying to be a white guy. I'm just saying as far as booking. Because he's never been booked that way, and Brock has. They need to book him like they have booked Brock over the years as a strong powerhouse. And I hope he goes over at WrestleMania. And if he doesn't, like you said, him and Drew need to keep this going for a while. And if Drew does go over at WrestleMania and get his WrestleMania moment, okay, fair enough. Have Bobby get that strap back. And I think Bobby's next opponent after Drew as a champion should be Brock Lesnar. Finally, they need to do the whole Brock versus Bobby, and that should be the SummerSlam main event. To be honest,
That'd be good.
Brock versus Bobby for the championship, and hopefully they don't feed Bobby to Brock like they fed poor Kofi to Brock. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think they will.
I hope not. I definitely hope not. He's too much of a powerhouse. I love Kofi, but you could, as shitty as that was, you could see that being the case because Kofi's a rather small guy, so he's going up against the monster. Okay, fine, you feed him to the monster. But Bobby's too much of a powerhouse to just be fed to Brock, so don't do it. Do the right thing, WWE. So kudos to the Almighty. We're in the undisputed era of the Almighty, and I'm proud of him. And the Hurt Business. And business is good. So that being said, you guys, do you have any parting words on that?
No, I think that's it. Well, my tablet's about to die,
Almighty?
so we should wrap up.
Are you Team Almighty?
Of course. I'm team Hurt Business. I'm team Bobby Lashley, Team Almighty.
I'm team Tribal Chief.
Like Roman's been killing it. Roman's. Yeah, I mean, I've always been a Roman fan. When everyone hated Roman, I loved Roman.
I love.
So
Roman
this is like just desserts for me. I'm like everyone's now seeing what like me and my buddies have been saying for the longest time. Like, no, Roman's like good. He's been good, but now he's great.
And he stepped his game up. I think he knew when he left and came back. And it wasn't it was not, I don't think it was something he was told. I think he told himself, when I come back, I have to step my game up with my promos. I have to be better. I have to look better. I have to act better. I have to wrestle better. And this is the greatest run he's had. And shout out to the head of the table, man.
It's some of the best acting I've seen. Like when he had that cage match with Jay, and he was like crying. It was like,
that was great.
This is fantastic. This is phenomenal stuff.
It's good, good promo work. Good, definitely believable. He did a great job. And shout out to Jey Uso, dude. They put him over more than you would have ever seen one of the Usos get put over years ago. Main event Uso. Yeah. So shout out to all those guys. You guys tune in. WrestleMania is coming up. I think the next pay-per-view is Fastlane on the 21st. Some shameless plug for the WWE. And with that being said, you guys, that was our show. Yay! You guys, I always say this. I don't say it enough. but you know you've reached the show with a contemporary sense of humor, but more so. Let us know how you think we're doing, you guys. We've had a lot of interviews and a lot of guests the past few months, and this is actually the first episode we've done in 2020 without a guest. In quite a in
2021.
2021. I keep saying 2020. See what that year has done? It's affected my brain because it was
It seems like it's an elongated year. It seems like it's all
it's an
part of the
extension.
same year.
2021 is nothing but an extension of 2020 to a degree.
I think because March 13th of
The
2020
anniversary.
seemed like the start of a new year. So now we're still like the pandemic, like we're coming across the year of it. So it seems like 1 year.
Listen, I know for a fact when the first official shutdown was and when COVID officially became a true thing. That was March 15th. That was the last TMI Hollywood show. Shout out to Peter Aiello. We had him. He was on our last episode as a guest. But we did a show the day of the shutdown. So I will always remember March 15th. So here we are again. But you guys, you've reached episode 9, season 2. We love the show. We're going to go ahead and take it to the outro because that rhymes. And I am the man, the master, and I am the ruler of, trying to make my screen bigger. There we go. I am the ruler of the world. So I can see myself, obviously. I am the jet flying, non-kiss stealing because that's rapey. But I love Ric Flair. He's a legend. And it was cool to say that back then, but it's not so cool now. Sorry. A jet flying, limousine riding by Ric Flair, said by Rickles Flair. The jabroni beating, pie eating, as said by Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I am the Lipton iced tea drinking. Well, it's gone now. I am the sanitizer disinfectant using. It's backwards, but you guys, yeah. Listen, use this shit. It's a pandemic, you guys. I am the hand sanitizing. I still got a little bit of this left. And dribble, 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 dribble. There it goes. Rub it around in the hands. I am the paper towel using because you have to clean up when you make a mess like what I just did right now. I am the seasoning using. White folks, please use seasoning. Don't make no sense to cook shit and it be flavorless. I am the one and only because I am the sun. And just like The Rock, I am the rapping, electrifying one. LAREN Maxstar Moore.
And boom, Vince Eustace.
Enough said. Enough said. And with that, folks, you've reached episode 9, season 2 of Popcorn
And Booze.
Ow! Gotta go. See you later. Undisputed Era of the Almighty. Bobby Lashley. Let's go. The Hurt Business. And business is good. Yeah.